So welcome to you all, wherever you are in the world. And thank you again for joining us today. We hope you're all doing well. Please tell us how you're doing, where you are, what country you're dialing in from today. And please feel free to share that in the chat box so we can all see the range of countries that this wonderful jewelry industry exists in. So as I said, welcome to this, the 6th of our webinars from CIBJO. It's hosted by me, Edward Johnson, here in London, and also CIBJO's Head of Communications, Steve Benson, in Tel Aviv. So we've gone back to Zoom this week. Those of you who've been watching knew that we went to a different platform last week, Webinar Jam. So it's nice to be back on Zoom again, and thank you for persevering and joining us today. We do expect and hope that this webinar will be 1 hour. We have a lot of very important speakers and a lot of information to get through. So the Jewelry Industry Voices webinar series is supported by CIBJO and also supported by the Italian Exhibition Group and Vicenza Oro. And we look at the impact and the implications of the COVID-19 crisis on the jewelry business from the perspective of industry figures. When we started doing this on April 22nd, the focus was very much on surviving. Now we can see that many countries have returned or are returning to business. So today we're starting to shift the emphasis of our weekly conversations. Today I'm joined by leaders in the 4 main product categories that the industry uses to create beautiful jewelry. By that I mean diamonds, pearls, colored gemstones, and precious metals. And we will look to the future and how we communicate about the unique qualities of jewelry to attract the modern consumer. Before we introduce the speakers, let's check in with Steve Benson. Steve, how are you today over there in Israel? Just unmute yourself, please, Steve.
Sorry about that. I'm well. It's the holiday starting over here, so things are relaxed. Just a few very brief housekeeping things that we have. For those who have seen our webinars beforehand, they're familiar with them. We encourage people to ask questions, but please, if you have a question, fill it in the question box that you will see on the screen. And if time permits, the question will be directed at the panelists. In terms of the chat box on your right hand side, you're free to obviously chat and to ask questions as you wish from from other members of the audience. And that's about it. So what I'd like to do at this stage over here is just to welcome the CIBJO President Gaetano Cavalieri, who will just say a few words of welcome. Gaetano.
Thank you very much, Steve, and thank you very much, Ed. But let me thank the 4 super panelists we have today. I'm very happy that you were able to join us because your contribution, it is very valuable for us and very valuable for the industry in general. But my thanks goes to all the participants and attendees that are with us quite every seminar we offer, webinar we offer. And I am very happy seeing the results of the webinars that we are putting on the air every few days, apart the Rui Galopin de Carvalho webinars on specific issues related to the jewelry industry, of course, and to the stones. But I can see from the mail and the comments that we receive that these webinars are bringing a new way of thinking. So new approach, because for sure we are going to this that is called new normal, but not only because that, but because I can see all around the world what is going on. I am in contact with people from China to Australia to South America, North America, Canada, and I have attended few webinars here and there just to see how the people react. And the reaction is very good. So we are learning from all our participants, both from one side, the speakers, and from the other side, all those who are attending the webinar through their questions, how we are going to face the future. So from my side, again, thank you all very, very much from the bottom of my heart. And please push us in doing better, because I'm sure that we can perform better, and we can do better, and we want to do better. Send us emails and messages in order that at least we can be assured that we have people like you, very knowledgeable and high level people pushing us to go forward in this direction. Thank you very much.
Grazie mille, signori.
Grazie a te.
So let's get into the meat of what we want to talk about today. But before I do that, let's welcome the speakers in. Let's start with David Kellie. David is the CEO of the Diamond Producers Association, or the DPA. And David was newly appointed to the position in December 2019, but he has over 30 years marketing leading consumer brands around the world. David, good morning. Briefly, how are you and where are you this morning?
I'm not telling you, Ed. It's part of the fun of Zoom is to try and guess where everybody is in the world. No, I'm in Connecticut. I work in New York office normally. Having said that, I only took over in the role on January the 1st. I think I've only done 7 weeks in the office, and the rest of my career with the DPA has been in Zoom calls. So it's becoming the new normal, but it's nice to see you all. Okay,
great. Well, thank you, David. Nice of you to be with us. And also, I believe in a similar part of the world to you is Huw Daniel. Huw is the CEO of Platinum Guild International, or PGI. He's been with PGI since 2003, and prior to that had 25 years experience in marketing and communications, especially with Saatchi and J. Walter Thompson. So Huw, good morning as well to you. How are you?
Good morning, Ed. I'm very well. I'm dialing in from upstate New York, a bit further north than David. And if you hear a lot of birds tweeting in the background, that's because we're surrounded by woods. But it's great to see you, and I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today.
Thank you. It'll be a lovely accompaniment to our discussion about these beautiful natural products that we have the honor of talking about. Jennifer, hello to you as well. Jennifer Heebner is, well, she joins with many hats, but today we've asked her to join as the Executive Director of the Cultured Pearl Association of America, the CPAA. Jennifer is an award-winning journalist who's been covering the fine jewelry industry for more than 20 years, and it's so great to have you with us, Jennifer. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks so much for the invitation. I'm delighted to be here. I am further to the south of Huw and David. I am in quarantine in the Philadelphia suburbs where my husband and I live. I typically commute to New York, but I've not been there for quite a while for obvious reasons. So you might not hear birds, but you may hear big dogs barking. I'm hoping they'll behave this morning, but if you hear a big dog, that's my fault. So I'll try to mute it.
There is no fault assigned. We are real, we're at home, and that's the reality. And I'm so pleased that you have such a lovely dog in your house. Thank you. Let's go across the pond now to Paris, and let's welcome Emmanuel Piat. Emmanuel is the owner of Maison Piat. He's a third generation gemstone trader and cutter, and his business has offices in Paris, Geneva, and Bangkok. Hello to you, Emmanuel.
Hello, Edward. Hello from Paris, where we have a beautiful sun. We don't have much birds, but something is new here. We don't have any tourists. And that's, in some ways, is quite nice, I must say.
Great. Thank you. Nice to have you with us today, and welcome. So please note, if I can just give this quick disclaimer, none of the opinions or the information that's offered during this webinar by any of the panelists constitutes any legal, financial, or any official advice. Please be aware that CIBJO provides a global perspective on the challenges that we're all facing together. So please, for more precise information, we do encourage you to play an active part in your local trade association and seek advice relevant to your location and also your business. Let's get into the question and really thinking about the topic of lockdown, which we're in, or some people are in and some people have moved out, and the recovery. We know that everybody's in a different state and different markets are in different statuses at the moment. Jennifer, if I could turn to you first for your perspective
Sure.
from the pearl industry, how would you describe the market, the pearl market? Is it still essentially in lockdown, or do you feel that it's in a state of recovery right now?
It's really a mix. I mean, LA County just reopened for, they went into yellow phase yesterday, I believe. So that means that retail businesses are open for curbside pickup and appointment only. New York City is going into yellow mode, I believe, in a couple of weeks. So it's really a mix of still in lockdown, state of recovery. But our members tell me that the next 3 months are pretty much going to be, they're going to be in a holding pattern. They're trying to balance respect and safety for their employees with trying to reopen and get some income trickling back in.
Great, thank you. Huw, if I can turn to you for the perspective from the platinum market, what's the situation with platinum right now?
PGI is active in 4 markets. So if I can just quickly summarize, China was first in and first out. So went into complete lockdown around Chinese New Year. Business was basically 80% down for January, February. Started to come back in March. The business is up now. We're seeing consumers back in stores. There's only 2 parts of China which is still under lockdown, Dongbei Northeast and Wuhan. But business is really coming back nicely. We're not seeing what I'd say is the revenge shopping that some people predicted, especially outside of the top luxury branded items, but business is back. Japan, which was last in, is second out. So business beginning to come back to normal as the state of emergency has been lifted there. In America, as Jennifer said, we're seeing a patchwork of responses. So the business, there has been business that's continued throughout the crisis because, you know, we have a variety of states with different conditions. But the major metros have been, business has been really decimated there. And India still very much in the middle, went in late. And we are seeing some opening up more in the rural and tertiary markets, but the major metros where our platinum business is most strong is really been affected.
Okay, thanks. Let's go to colored stones now, Emmanuel. I know that you're very well placed to service and look after a lot of the requirements of many of the fine jewelry maison there in Place Vendôme and around. So what's the state, do you think, for the market for you at the moment?
Well, if we take the market of these international brands, they are stepping down at the moment, waiting to see what's going to happen. What I heard from them is they have some sales for the access pieces, but the high jewelry, which usually are sold at the time of an event, is unfortunately out of business, as there's no event anymore. They've done everything they could to find new ways to organize these high jewelry sales, but so far they didn't find a way to do it. So regarding the stones, the stock and so on, they are not buying anymore. On the other side, the retailer in France are making some sales. There's quite a lot of people who have been able to save money. 55 billions of euros have been saved by the French people. And some of them are making some purchase for small rings, a small souvenir, and so on. So there's not a huge activity for sure, but there's hope. There's some money there.
Great. We love the stories of hope. And we also love the stories about the amount of money that's been in people's pockets. So let's discuss how we can start to turn that into gemstones and jewelry for them. By the way, before I move to David for his assessment of the diamond market at the moment, we've just tipped over. We've got 104 people watching with us today, slightly less than we've had in previous weeks, but I think we can say it's definitely quality over quantity today. So welcome to everybody joining. David, what's the state of the diamond market? Still essentially in lockdown, or do you see any recovery coming?
I mean, it's very similar to what Huw and Jennifer said. We're dealing, we have the same retail networks, the same, consumers. So it's very similar to what they both said. I think there is optimism. I think, and whether it's because we're based in the US and my view of Americans is they are always optimistic. And but it feels like here in the US that we've moved to a position of optimism, and I'd say that in a very cautious way because we have a long way to go. But and I think China, as you said, is showing some interesting, not just interesting recovery, but interesting ways about going about recovery. Using technology and other tools, etc. So it's an interesting time, and if we had a crystal ball, then we'd all be able to see exactly how long it will take. But it will be. I feel that we're on the right. We're taking the earliest steps towards getting there. Great,
cautious steps. I think that's what we're seeing across the market there. Let's turn back to pearls a little bit, and Jennifer, from your perspective, with the association there and your board members especially, how do you feel that the industry has managed to respond to the COVID crisis?
I think how our industry has, our members have really been in a holding pattern during the pandemic, but I know some of them have been reaching out to help our communities and first responders. For example, Jeremy Shepard, the founder and CEO of Pearl Paradise, he's been importing basic hospital masks and has been distributing them to his, in his local Southern LA community. Other, Sunny Sethi of Terra Pearls, he has done the same with some masks in the New York area. So, our members are kind of, they're sitting tight waiting for business, but they're helping communities where they can, for sure.
I think it's clear that, those businesses that have helped at this time of the pandemic are the ones that are going to be recognized when we're back to some kind of normal. So that's great to hear that your members are helping out in the community. Prices, of course, and the stability of prices are very important. And colored stones prices, Emmanuel, they fluctuate, I think, very, almost more than any other material that we deal with. What's happened during this period, this lockdown, for colored stone prices? And more importantly, what does that mean for the retailer and the consumer?
Well, there's, as in any market, if there's a lot of supply, the price usually get down. If there's no, the price get high. And that happens with the colored gemstone. There was not much supply in calibrated size, for which there was a demand during this lockdown, because most of the people were able to work on their home, or the workshop were still manufacturing to do it. So we can see that in Bangkok, the price for calibrated size, for the high quality calibrated size, has been raised. On the other hand, the commercial goods, for which there was not much request, went down. Regarding the high jewelry and the loose stones, we have seen some high level of sales, mainly in China, in Hong Kong. Some people wanted to put their money away from the bank, maybe, but there was definitely some high value sales, not made by the brands so far, but for people who most probably wanted to put their money away from a bank. At the level of the retailer, of course, most of them were shut, but they were opening, some of them, the digitalization sales. And there was, of course, some opportunities. I know even from some wholesaler who usually buy from one-to-one, face-to-face, who bought through the web, through Instagram sometimes, which is something absolutely impossible in the past for the colored gemstone industry. It didn't receive the stone yet. So let's see.
So they're selling using Instagram. Is that Instagram Live or just little videos?
It was Instagram, just a connection of people who don't know each other. But one was in Sri Lanka, the other one was in America. And he asked to some of his friends in Sri Lanka to go and see the stones. And he succeeded, he purchased the stone. So, of course, there was still interactivity with physical body. But at least the sales was initiated by Instagram.
That's great to hear. Jennifer, yes, you wanted to say something.
Yes, I just want to reinforce what Emmanuel is saying. Instagram has been integral in helping people, helping with sales during this time. I mean, everybody's homebound. We've got captive audiences all over the world. So where they're the high-end customer, where they're able to shop online. So it's been a lifeline of support to many folks, designers and retailers. So we're really grateful to see that. And a lot of people are taking better advantage of Instagram as a platform to connect with consumers.
Great. Thanks, Jen. And that's a nice segue to one of the future webinars that we have planned here is online jewelry sales. And we'll be able to be announcing soon some fantastic panelists joining us in a couple of weeks to talk about online sales, especially in China. So we're looking forward to being able to announce that to you. Emmanuel, sticking with the colored stones just for a minute, because of course, you know, we've talked about Instagram, it opens up the world. Your world, unfortunately, has been slightly shrunk in that you can't travel anymore, which was an integral part of a colored stone dealer's life. You know, the supply chain has obviously been affected by COVID, but how does this hamper recovery? And what can colored gemstone dealers and retailers do to support the supply chain and regrowth and recovery?
Well, there's something which is very important. I think that we all are speaking about ethical and responsible sourcing. And I think that in this time, the most important act that we have to do, if we really are responsible, is to keep buying, even if our business is slightly down, for sure. But we have to keep this moving to get the movement and to keep these people we want to protect away from disaster. In that area, that's why we want to develop sales, and luckily some planes are still flying, some shipments are still coming, and there's possibility to follow the request to have some little activity. I was saying yesterday in another webinar that I am still a buyer, I'm still buying. Of course, I cannot make any trip, but if people want to send me some goods, I'll be happy to purchase. And I think I will not be the only one. I hope I will not be the only one, because we absolutely need to keep trade, all of us at any level. And that is something which is very important, I think.
And it's especially important, isn't it? Because, you know, the vast majority, some people say 80%, some people even say more than 80% of the world's colored stones come from artisanal and small scale miners, some of the communities that need the income and the trade the most at this time. Thanks for that perspective, Emmanuel. Let's think about platinum, a very different business, a very different product, Huw. But how's the platinum business been affected by the pandemic, and you know, where PGI operates your market development activities? What's the role of platinum in those markets?
Typically, platinum is a relatively small part of the market. To give you a sense, we probably sell about 10% of the volume of gold in China, and even less in India, where we do have quite a big plain metal business. So it's a combination of primarily plain metal and some gem set jewelry. Those sales, obviously, you know, as stores closed down, basically the business wasn't happening. What we've seen since it's coming back, interestingly, in China, is there's been quite a lot of interest in platinum because the supply chain is pretty full. The retailers are pretty full of gold product that they basically couldn't sell because they were closed during Chinese New Year. And as they look to reopen and look to repurchase, of course, the gold price is now very high and the platinum price is very low. So we have seen, interestingly, people that had walked away from platinum at the wholesale and retail level over the past 5 years actually showing renewed interest in purchasing. And a lot of the work that we've been doing in China is on leading the industry to innovate in product design. So there's a lot of new product, new generation of product, which is available for consumers and retailers. So, you know, we are optimistic, I would say. If you look at kind of sentiment in the industry, I'd say the retailers are cautiously optimistic. Everyone's crossing their fingers, hoping that there won't be any new, you know, cases of infection in China. The traffic at retail is not back yet by any means. It's probably 60% of where it was, where it should be. But to the earlier comments about business online, I mean, obviously e-commerce has been huge, and a lot of live streaming. So a lot of the retailers have empowered their sales staff to basically live stream. And so they're holding sales either to groups of consumers or individual consumers. They reach out, they showcase new products. So there's been a lot of innovation in that kind of what we call social commerce category in China. So business is come back, I would say, stronger than we thought. I don't think it's going to be a V-shaped recovery by any means, but we're feeling quite optimistic about Q3 and Q4. It's really too early to tell in the other markets yet where we think it's going. I mean, for platinum, we tend to be associated most with what we call love gifting jewelry, which is the category which is probably least affected in the sense that people are still looking for jewelry, especially for, you know, significant moments, significant meaning. So in that sense, you know, we're quite well placed to benefit from recovery.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Huw. I want to turn to diamonds and David now, but can I just remind everybody listening out there that if you have any questions, please pop them in the Q&A section and we'll be able to get to them hopefully at the end. So we're halfway through here now, and David, if I can turn to you for the diamond perspective. Of course, we all know that the diamond market traditionally has been somewhat protected or even inoculated, if we can use that phrase, against downturns, market downturns, and that's mainly thanks to bridal jewelry. Has that been the experience for the diamond market this time, and where do things stand now?
We don't know. I mean, we'll only know really when we look back on this time period as to how deep it is and how long it is. So it's very difficult to forecast when you're in the middle of a crisis exactly how bad the crisis is and how long it will last. I think it's true to say, and I'm always the most optimistic person in our industry, but I think it is true to say that this crisis is bigger than any crisis in recent memory. So, I don't think, I think it becomes a very difficult one to call. Having said that, I think if you look at the luxury market in total through all of recent crises, luxury has recovered quickly. And luxury, when you look at the long-term growth of luxury, the crises that have happened over the last 20 to 30 years have been minor blips on the ongoing growth for it. So it's only when you look at it long-term that you really get a sense of perspective on it all. As I say, this crisis is deeper, so the time needs to be told. But once we come back, from my perspective, it's a really case of what we do collectively as industries. We can, how we present ourselves, how we communicate ourselves, how we work with retail partners, how we evolve in the digital world, all of that is within our control. So I tend to look at these things not as if it's outside our control and a crisis that we can't affect. I think there's a lot that we can, particularly in the diamond industry and probably the jewelry industry in total. It hasn't kept pace with other luxury industries over the last 20 years. And so there's a lot of work for us to do. And I believe the opportunity coming out of this crisis is going to be significant. I think jewelry is going to have a significant relevance to the consumer coming out of this. People want to buy goods that have meaning, that have symbolism, and that's what we all represent here. So, so for me, I don't know is the simple answer, Ed, but I do believe that when the consumer is ready to come back, I think from then on, it's up to us and how we as an industry conduct ourselves that will define where we go after this.
So, David, if I stick with you, I mean, how's DPA responded? You talk about it's up to us to define. Let's think about the comeback and how do we mount that comeback? Let's move into those section of questions. How has the DPA responded to the crisis, and to what degree is it necessary to account for that consumer reluctance to spend on luxury products in this health crisis?
So we're going to be relaunching ourselves next week under a new name and a new identity. It's not as a result of the current crisis. We had planned to do this from before the crisis. We think that it's coincidentally, it is the right time to do that. We think that we want to present an optimistic view on the future of the world. The consumer in luxury has been changing for a number of years, and coronavirus has, if anything, precipitated and sped up that change in luxury consumers. So it's about a different world coming out of this, and it's a world that was beginning to happen before we started, but after it's going to be very important. Good example is sustainability. There's not a brand or a company in the world that doesn't profess to be sustainable, but genuine sustainability is going to be much more important, and showing up in the right way is going to be critical. So there are many ways in which I think diamonds will show up differently, and I don't think it's exclusive to diamonds. I think we're all in our industry thinking the same way, feeling the same way. And so for us, it's about speaking to an audience differently. It's about speaking more digitally. It's about retailing differently, and really presenting ourselves as a luxury product in the luxury market to an audience that won't be able to spend on travel for the foreseeable future. Experiences will be more limited. So for those that with money, there will be disposable income, and it's about all of us defining between us how we can grow our business within that context.
Thank you. Yeah, and I mean it's good that you mentioned sustainability. It gives me the opportunity to remind everybody listening that all of our webinars are recorded and are posted on CIBJO's YouTube channel. And a couple of weeks ago, we talked about sustainability with RJC and also Christina Miller from the US. And if anybody wants to watch that or even rewatch it, You can find it on CIBJO's website and on CIBJO's YouTube channel. Let's look at pearls, Jennifer, if we can, and you know, for your association and your members there, the Cultured Pearl Association of America. How have you been supporting your members as they've been making a comeback, and what's been sort of your focus for the members at this time?
During the quarantine, we have been reaching out to members, keeping in touch, asking them what we can do. Everyone has been in a holding pattern, as I said before. So what felt right to do was to start doing Instagram lives. Our members love social media. They so Instagram has felt like a very natural platform for us to continue reaching out to our fans on. So we've been bringing our members before the camera, and they're talking about their businesses. They're talking about the meaning of pearls, our beautiful sustainability story. So we've been having lots of conversations on Instagram, and we've asked our members if they wanted us to do something else, some kind of digital catalog over this summer. And they really want to wait until fall to connect with their buyers. So we're keeping a conversation going on Instagram. We're staying top of mind so that when collectors and the trade are ready to buy, ready to treat themselves, or looking for a meaningful piece of jewelry, that pearls can be, you know, a factor considered in that conversation.
It sounds like a wise strategy, keeping pearls top of mind. That's a nice approach. Let's think about the platinum with the same sort of general question, Huw. How has PGI needed to adjust its activities due to COVID? And can you tell us more about any planned activities that you may have to assist recovery?
Yeah, so we had to adjust a lot. Luckily, Q1 is relatively light for us in terms of activity in most markets. So looking at kind of Q2, Q3, we've really had to reprioritize to the second half of the year and kind of in a way re-engineer most of our activities as recovery programs. We have kept messaging going. Obviously, like Jennifer, we've been very connected with our partners, not just from a solidarity point of view, but also planning for the second half. Because even though we've all been working remotely, there's been a lot of activity looking at what the recovery plan can look at. In China, we basically kicked off our recovery activities on May 20th. 5/20 is a major holiday, love gifting holiday in China. So we had a big promotional event with all the major retailers in China. So that kind of kicked off. Still waiting to see how that went. Initial feedback sounds quite positive. And then for the rest of the year, we're going to be going on a province by province basis, doing a deep dive into promotions that involve retailers, shopping malls, getting consumers back into stores, and featuring new product. I think if we look at India, our business there, because we basically own brands in India. So it's instead of just doing a branded generic platinum messaging. So in India, we've had to keep more of a kind of dialogue between platinum and the direct consumer going. And we've done that via our social platforms. And that seems to have had quite a good response, because going completely black was not an option. So yes, I mean, basically second half is really very, very focused on reigniting the business through a combination of brand building and consumer promotions.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to the future. Let's look at if we can, or how we can envisage the new normal, whatever that might be. Emmanuel, let's bring the colored stones back into the conversation over there. Do you believe that the consumer will have changed after this experience that we've been through, and will this transform the way you market your products and your colleagues as well in the colored stone trade?
Well, First of all, I think that, as my grandfather was saying, when it's not the time to sell, there's no use to fight. There's no sales coming. So we have to use this time to do something else. And I think the time is for education, communication, of course. But so it's now the time to explain your product, to speak more about it, to present it in a better way, and to use maybe new technology for that. On a certain way, we don't have to go to too easy business. Like we have in color gemstone industry, some people going always for the same colors. We've seen some people making on their website some publicity for their famous pigeon blood ruby or so on. And so it's a bit like in the diamond industry in the past, everybody goes for the D color because it's known as the best. And I'm not so good in diamond, but I'm quite sure, and I've seen some beautiful diamond who were fluorescent, G color, but were bright, much more than some D color diamond. And it's the same in the color gemstone industry. So there's a market for everyone, all kind of colors. And if we train well our clients, we will prepare ourselves to a better business when it be back.
Thank you, Emmanuel. And let's dive straight across to diamonds since you referenced them. And David, do you believe the consumer will have changed after this? And how do you think retailers and the trade should transform the way they market diamonds?
Yeah, I mean, the consumer, I don't think the consumer will have changed. I think a lot of the trends that were happening anyway before coronavirus will continue, but they'll continue at a much faster pace. So, for example, consumer respect for, as we talked about earlier on, about sustainability, about with things that stand for things, for connections, for meaning, etc. So there were a lot of trends that were happening in the luxury industry that will still be the trends going forward, but the intensity of the time period that we've been through from a business point of view, from an individual point of view, no one in our generation has ever been through anything like this. And it's really the heightened emotion that goes with it heightens everything that is happening in the world. So so that's what's important. There are things that don't matter to people will fall by the wayside. And so whether it's retailers, whether it's products, whether it's categories, whether it's diamonds, whatever it is, it's about things with meaning. And things and services and businesses that don't have a heart to them, that don't have meaning to them, will find it very difficult. And those that do, and when I say meaning, it has to be genuine. It can't be fake. The consumer sees through fake, glossy websites that don't have any authenticity behind them. But things that do have meaning will have a strong place in the world, and that's where, you know, I would encourage ourselves in the diamond industry and everybody in our industry to actually use this time to say, what am I going to stand for coming out of this crisis? How am I going to show up differently? What am I going to mean to people? Because the consumer's got choice, and we have to make sure that choice is with the products that we sell in the stores that we service.
Yeah, you're so right there, I think. And Huw, if I turn to you with platinum, you talked about platinum being the love metal. And one of our previous panelists talked about a retailer in the States, John Carter, talked about love not being quarantined in this period. So what do you think, Huw, about jewelry, and of course platinum jewelry in particular? How is it positioned to respond when we come out of lockdown and when we're post-pandemic?
Well, we just completed quite a comprehensive survey of our 4 major markets to get a sense for where consumers are kind of coming out at the moment. So we talked to consumers who had acquired a piece of jewelry in the last 24 months and intend to acquire in the coming 24 months. And the results were kind of interesting, kind of more positive than we were expecting. It did vary market by market. I think the first learning was that consumers generally feel that the impact on their country and their economy is going to be greater than the impact on them personally, which is kind of quite interesting. That might be because generally jewelry consumers, people who are in that space actively, are going in with fatter wallets. They went into this crisis with fatter wallets than the average population. In terms of kind of optimism, consumers are definitely more optimistic in China than anywhere else. The least optimistic are the Japanese, but I think that comes from that kind of cautiousness that comes from a society that has had to deal with many crises in recent years. In terms of jewelry and platinum, our sense is that COVID's definitely made people reevaluate their priorities. And they're saying that actually they're reevaluating their priorities in a positive way, putting much more emphasis on relationships. Interestingly, we had a majority of consumers in every market agreeing with the statement, I feel a new appreciation for my partner as a person. It's almost as if when we're forced to stay at home and spend more time with our partners, we appreciate them more. And so when we look at that for jewelry, clearly love gifting jewelry, there's an opportunity to leverage that. But it will depend very much upon, I think, the industry's ability to respond in a meaningful and sincere way.
I like what you're saying about our partners appreciating us. Maybe I need to think about that for my wife when this is all finished. But
there you go.
Jennifer, let's look at pearls and the future for pearls as well. We know that pearls has got this status as a biogenic product. The old-fashioned term was an organic product.
Sure.
They can be farmed in a sustainable environment. You talked about that earlier, the sustainability story of pearls. Do you think that's an important component of marketing for pearls?
We do. We think it's one of our most wonderful attributes is that pearls, they have this beautiful, authentic story of sustainability, particularly the saltwater pearl. They are the farms that these pearls are grown on. They have to be pristine aquatic environments for the pearl to grow. The pearl, not only is the environment have to be pristine and very healthy for the oysters to thrive, but we're providing jobs in these far-flung destinations across the world. It's a very sexy, beautiful story, and we just have to do a better job of telling that story, continue to tell the story of the pearl. It's, we've been joking, our product has kind of been, you know, entering this quarantine, our product is used to adversity. Every day on a pearl farm, there's some kind of disaster happening in these remote destinations. So pearls are grown from adversity. And, you know, when this happened, we all felt, well, you know, we'll stay top of mind. And when people are ready to emerge and start looking for gifts of love and nurturing, what better product than to tell that story than the pearl? It takes years of nurturing and care of an oyster to result in a beautiful pearl. So we have this amazing story, and we're just going to continue to tell it. And we know that it's going to resonate. It's the story that consumers want to hear now, and it's truth. It's not, you know, manufactured. It's beautiful and honest and simple, and it's ours. So we'll continue to tell that story.
Yeah, thank you. Please do that. It's honest, and it's also beautiful. You get to transport people to some of the most beautiful remote islands and locations all around the world when you talk about pearls.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, when you talk about colored stones, Emmanuel, we journey all around the world as well. And, you know, sourcing of the finest colored stones is a very global occupation. But from your perspective and your outlook, what's the future of the colored stone jewelry business and sales to the consumer? And why do you think that is, the outlook?
Well, we can see, I don't know if that is specific to the colored gemstone industry, but it's mainly for the whole industry. The gem show, for example, are less in fashion. We saw Basel, of course, disappear, but I can see that from some of my clients, they are a bit fed up with the shows. There's too much exhibitor. They don't have time to see everybody. They always visited the same supplier. And so I think that there's more new ways of communications, and at the same time, it's too much. All of us are surrounded by full of Instagram. I said it's helped the sales, but on the other hand, there's a lot of us who are using it, and maybe too much, and it's going to be like the newsletter. We're going to have too much on our computer, and we're going to be fed up with it. So we have to always keep the physical contact. This is, I think, a must. Of course, there will be maybe a return to this, surprisingly, to this return of relation that we always had, but help with this digitalization of the, like the webinar. I mean, look, the webinar we've been doing during this crisis, it's amazing. And for sure, that will keep going for between suppliers, between so on. But there will always be a need for the relation. It's a must.
Okay, thank you. Let's start to move towards the end at the top of the hour here, and let's turn to the questions, the Q&A. Steve, have you seen any interesting questions in the Q&A that you'd like to pose?
So Ed, I think I'm going to get a T-shirt with "You're on mute" being my statement of the year. Yes. Yeah,
I think so. Steve, you're on mute. I can't unmute you.
Apologize. I pushed the unmute button. At least I thought I had. I'm going to actually ask a question that was dealt with last year. This time it was raised by Dilip Kumar Jha. India has declared a 1-month moratorium on imports of rough diamonds beginning June 1. How's that going to impact the global jewelry industry? I realize it's a diamond-related question, but I think that it does relate to a point that Emmanuel spoke about earlier, and that is essentially the importance of maintaining the integrity of the supply of the supply chain. I think which is particularly relevant not only to diamonds, but also certainly pearls and maybe even some more so colored gemstones. But maybe we start with David over here. I mean, do the decisions like that to stop buying rough for a period of time, do you think that could impact the business?
I can't speak specifically to that. I'm not close enough to the inventories that sit in the supply chain, etc. But what I would say is that in a supply chain, every part of the supply chain is dependent on each other, and in most of our industries where geographical regions make up one significant part of the supply chain, it becomes very challenging if there are unilateral decisions made throughout the supply chain for it. So from my perspective, in a time of a crisis, communication between the supply chain is what matters. We're all interdependent on each other, and clearly there are times when things are outside people's controls, like retailers being closed. But wherever possible, we should be talking as an industry, because we are the sum of the parts, and we're bigger than the sum of the parts. So all I would encourage in all the supply chains is an open communication, because any action has a knock-on effect up and down the supply chain. And the more that we can communicate between ourselves, the more we can lessen that impact. So there are, I understand India and the supply chain there wanting to protect itself, but it's also dependent on a lot of the supply chain above and below. So I can't give a specific answer on how it will impact, but I do believe that communication through the supply chain is what's critical to come out of this stronger.
Okay, thanks, David. Emmanuel, there's a question on coloured stones here from Eduardo Vax. He asks, what will be the top 3 coloured stones after the quarantine? Looking for some market tips here.
Well, I know it, but I will not tell him. No, of course, I have absolutely no idea about it. But what I can tell is that, like all the crises, there's always something good coming out of it. And one of them, like you know, in France, we'll have lots of love affair. And unfortunately, we have also some divorce. And most probably after this lockdown, there's going to be a lot of divorce. But so just behind it, a lot of new wedding, most probably. And also some baby boom. We're going to have in 9 months a lot of rings to congratulate the mother, most probably.
Yeah, thank you.
Only guess.
Of course, from my perspective, the top 3 colored stones that will sell most are the 3 that are in your safe. But anyway, you chose not to answer it that way. There's a question here from Adolfo de Basilio, our friend in Madrid. If I can paraphrase the question, he's asking, and Gaetano, maybe I could ask you to think about this a little bit. He's asking that, you know, we're not sure what sales are going to be like as we enter the new normal. And could CIBJO, ICA, and all the other important worldwide organizations, can they work together to help and support and guarantee retailing businesses around the world? How can that be organized? Adolfo is asking.
Well, thank you very much, and thank Adolfo for asking this question. First of all, we work with everybody, so we don't need to wait because the crisis to work with ICA, GTA, or DPA, or PGI, and the Pearl from America, and so on. So we work with everybody. I can answer in this way. We are learning a lot from this crisis, which is totally different from any other crisis we have had in the past since ever. I personally believe that, you know, when we will go back to the new normal, the people want to satisfy themselves, and there is nothing better than a piece of jewelry to do that. Obviously, there are a few other, let's say, competitors' industries, but still a piece of jewelry gives a very special satisfaction. I believe that the way of selling will be a little bit different. Jennifer said about Instagram or many other activities done virtually, but it's not only that. It's not only that. I mean, we in CIBJO, we are preparing the future in a way that because what we are learning, and then we have to bring back all this knowledge to everybody, because it's the issue related to the participation of so many people, and we reached previously the number of 125 or 6, I believe. But in any case, we have to give back in a way of we have to tell them how to do. And we are studying on that. And I'm telling you and all the people, including Adolfo, that we are preparing, you know, something that it will be a program of new ideas, a new vision, and new activities that I hope that we will satisfy so many people in order to manufacture, trade, and buy jewelry.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Gaetano. David, I know you've got a hard stop, so we like to go around and have a few brief final thoughts from all of our panelists today as we reach the top of the hour. David, if you'd like to start, and thank you for joining us. We know you might have to leave after this. What are your final thoughts today?
So, well, look, thank you. Thanks for putting this together, Ed and Gaetano. I really appreciate having this opportunity to, you know, to continue to talk about the industry and how we come out of it successfully. I remain very optimistic, as I said, you know, in my words earlier on. I think it's about us. Once the consumer comes back, and I think the consumer will come back once the testing is there, once the vaccinations are there, the consumer will come back strongly. And I think it's up to us. We at the DPA take our role very seriously. We know how many people in the industry depend on us. But we're excited by it, and it's a strange thing to say, but coming out of this crisis, we're excited by the opportunities. So, and I look forward to kind of sharing that with you and continuing the discussion with in the diamond industry, but also all the other panelists as well. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David. And we know that you're launching your rebrand, and there's a presentation next Monday from DPA. So we look forward to joining that. And anybody else, check out the Diamond Producers Association, and they've got some events coming up next week.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Take
David.
care. Huw, if I can turn to you for some final thoughts as we wrap up today.
Well, I think jewelry buyers are probably part of a cohort of consumers who are best placed to re-emerge from this crisis. So I think it really is, it is a big opportunity for us. And if you think that over the last 15, 20 years, so much buying power has gone into fashion, accessories, travel, things that perhaps have less meaning, I think that jewelry really does have a great opportunity. But we need to really understand our consumers, need to keep our consumers front and center as an industry, maybe be a little less focused on where we're getting our products from and more focused on the consumers who are going to be consuming at the end of the day.
That's interesting perspective. Thank you for that. Jennifer, how are you feeling? It's been great to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just your final thoughts today.
You know, going into this pandemic, pearls were in a great position. We had, looking back to Vegas shows, 2019, all of our members had terrific shows, the dealers, the pearl jewelry manufacturers. They had great shows. It was a strong fall. It was a solid Christmas. Tucson this year was a great show for our members, very robust sales. So, you know, everyone was forced to halt because of the pandemic, but I think we're uniquely positioned to just resume this great activity and interest from consumers once, you know, things start to reopen as they have. So, and with the, you know, the naturally beautiful story that our product has to offer, I think pearls are in a great position to continue to be of interest to the collector and the person who cares about the backstory, because we have a great one.
Thanks, Jennifer. Great to have you with us. Emmanuel, final thoughts from you across there in Paris.
To be honest, I'd rather be into that business, our industry, than in the travel agency. I'm quite convinced that after this virus, and this is not the only one, but this is the one who are affected the most, some people will maybe not spend as much money to travel as they were before. We know that travel were definitely a competitor to our industry, and I really think that it will not be as good as in the past, I think. Therefore, also there will be for sure some souvenir of this crisis. I'm sure all of us had some very good time during these last months, either with their kids or with some of our friends, even if we were locked down with them. And that will be a souvenir they will most probably want to remember in some ways. And I've been surprised to see that some of my friends have been just after the lockdown asking for rings and as they were been thinking during these 2 last months.
Okay, thank you, Emmanuel. So let's wrap up now. We're just a little bit past the hour. We have a really wonderful announcement to make that our show, and it is a show, a webinar and a show, next week is on trade shows. We're addressing directly the question that many of you have asked: what is the future for trade shows? Rethinking the future. I'm very, very pleased to be able to tell everybody we have representatives from what many people consider the 4 main trade shows joining us on the panel next week. We have representatives from JCK Vegas, from Reed Exhibitions. We have representatives from Basel World. We have a representative from Vicenza Oro. And also we have a representative from the Hong Kong September and June trade shows. Please join us. That is a very appropriate conversation to be having in these times of no travel. What is the future for trade shows? Also, if I can, let's talk about Rui's, our friend Rui Galopin's next talk on home gemology, still sponsored by CIBJO. Please join us next Tuesday, June 2nd, where he interviews and has a presentation from Dr. Jack Ogden, a very famous gemologist, well known throughout the community, on sapphires and an early history of sapphires. Please join us. You can register for that and these, and watch the videos of these presentations on CIBJO's website. Please, if you want to be the first to get the invitations for these events, and especially that very appropriate one next week on trade shows with all those fantastic speakers, please sign up to join CIBJO's mailing list. The email is on the list there. Finally, I get the honor and the privilege to thank everybody for being here. Gaetano, Steve, everybody at CIBJO, thank you so much for all your support to make these happen. Thank you to IEG for your support as well while we do this. Very especially thank you to my wonderful panelists. We've had such a great chat before today and also today. I've really enjoyed the time, and thank you for sharing your expertise and your knowledge with everybody. But most importantly, thank you to everybody who joined. We do appreciate your time. We ask you now to stay safe, stay indoors if that's a requirement in your country. If you're allowed to go out, please stay alert.
Ed, sorry.
Yes, Gaetano.
Before the people is going, I would like, of course, to thank everybody, panelists and attendees. But again, we said many times that we are learning a lot from this crisis. But we cannot forget the people that has passed away, which with their life, they probably are saving many more lives in this crisis, because the scientists can work and study how to come out. So I think that in CIBJO, our prayers are going to those who pass away and their families. And I would like to express the fact that we in CIBJO do not leave anyone behind. We want to bring everybody at exactly the same level. We support all of them. And again, we are trying to do our best, even though I'm sure that we can do even better, in order to give possibility to the humanity to have, after this coronavirus crisis, I hope, a better life. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Gaetano. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice, safe day or morning or evening, wherever you are. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week to talk about trade shows. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.